Hi everyone. In this video we shall see three different methods to create list of dates between start date and end date using Power Query. So let's say we have 26th of January 2024 as our start date and 8th of February 2024 as our end date. We want to generate output like this in which we have list of all the dates starting from 26th of January 2024 until 8th of February 2024. And our result must be dynamic such that if we change any of the two dates, then the list should update automatically. So how can we achieve this in Power Query? Let's discuss with three different methods. So this is our start date, this is our end date, and we will start with method 1 here. And in method 1, we are going to use list.dates function. Now, before starting with the list.dates function, let's study that function and what are the parameters that it has. So we will go to working query, and here we will see that what does that list.dates function do. So equals to, we will write list.dates here, and we will select this option from the IntelliSense. So we will select this, and we will ignore brackets for now in order to study the parameters of this function. So we get this as a result upon pressing enter, and this is the description of this function, that it returns a list of date values of size count starting at start. The given increment step is a duration value that is added to each value. Right, so we have to give a start date here. We already have that, so we can give that directly here as input. Then we have to give input for count here, that what should be the size of our list. For how many days do we want to create our list for, right? So starting from, let's say, 26 January, what should be the size of our list? For which period are we creating that list for? Right, so we will have to give that count here. We don't have this, we will have to calculate this part. Then we have to give a step as duration here. We cannot give directly 1 here as our input. We will have to give that value as duration. So again, we will study that duration as well, that what does this duration stands for. Then we have this example here as well, that this example creates list of 5 dates starting from 31st December 2011. So let's see that what does this example give as a result. So let's copy this, let's create another step, and let's uh, see the result here. So we get this as a result. So this is the start date, that is 31st of December 2011, and we are creating a list of 5 dates here. So we have given the input here as 5, and we have to give our input for step as duration, right? This should be type duration. Now, what is this duration doing? Let's study that as well. So we will create another step, and we will write here hash duration. So hash duration, and we will ignore the brackets for now. So what does this do? That it creates a duration value from numbers representing days, hours, minutes, and seconds. We can give our parameters here for days. So if we see that function, 1 stands for days here, that for how many days do we want to increment that. Then the second one is for hours, third one is for minutes, and then for seconds, right? So we can give those inputs here. Let's say we wish to increment by 1 day and 20 hours here. So we can replace this 0 by 20. We have this updated list of dates here. So we have started from 31st December 2011, and we are incrementing by 1 day, 20 hours here, right? And we are getting this result here. So this is what this function does, and we will have to give this input here as duration. We cannot directly give input as 1 here. So if we, let's say, replace this by 1 here, then we will get this error. We cannot convert the value 1 to type duration. We will have to give this step parameter as type duration. So for that, we will have to use this hash duration type here, right? So let's see that how we can use this list.dates function for our purpose and how we can make it dynamic. This part again, we already have this part, we can give as 1 day as our increment. We will have to make this part dynamic, right? So let's see that how we can do so. So we will move on to method 1, and here we are going to use list.dates function. So equals to list dates, open the brackets, and as our start date we can select that step of start date where we have start date as our input. So we will write here start date in order to select that step. So start date, count here as, let's say, we give 6 as input here, and as our step again as duration we will write here hash duration, open the brackets, 1 for 1 day, 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Right? Let's see that what is the result that we get. So this is the result that we get, that starting from 26th January 2024 until 31st January 2024, we have this result here. Right? We can change this number. Let's say we change this 6 to 9. Then we have incremented again by 1 day and we have reached until 3rd of February 2024. Now we wish to make this part dynamic such that it automatically captures the number of days between end date and start date. Now, how do we calculate the number of days between end date and start date? Let's see that. So if we manually see that, it comes out to be 14 days. So from 26 January 2024 until 8th of February 2024, we have 14 days. Now, how do we make that calculation in Power Query? Let's see that. So for that, there is one function in Power Query, that is duration.days. So let's study that function as well. So here we will write equals to duration.days function. So we will select that, we will ignore the brackets, and we will see the parameters for this function. So returns days portion of duration. So again, here we have to give our input as duration and we get in return the number of days that we have in that duration. So again, this example that is given here, it exactly does what we wish to generate. That is, it extract the number of dates between two dates. So we can use this formula here. So let's copy this. Let's create another step and let's paste that here. So we get this result here. So what do we have to do? Basically, we have to use duration.days. We are calculating the number of days between 25th February 2022 and 4th of March 2022, right? And this is the difference in days here. So let's see how we can use this for our purpose. So again, this here is the end date and this is the start date. End date minus start date, we will have to do this part here. So we can uh, type in this function. So let's come here and let's see, let's create another step and let's see the result here. So we will write here duration dot base, open the brackets. Then let's see that if we don't give any input here, what do we get? So again, this expects one uh, input, so that is not optional. And here we will have to give end date minus start date, right? And if we press enter and we see the result here, we get 13 as our result here. That is 13 days. Now, if we go back to method 1 and we change this 9 to, let's say, 13 manually. So we change this to 13 here. This is the result that we get starting from 26th January. We get list of dates until 7th of February. But we also wish to include this 8th of February here. Now, in order to include this here, what we will have to do, we will have to add 1 day to this here, this 13 here, right? Because we have to include that end date as well. So we will add that one here and we get list of all the dates starting from 26th of January until 8th of February, right? Now we have this 13 here. So we can replace this 13 with this dynamic function that we have generated here. So we will copy this formula. We will come to method 1 step. We will replace this 13 with that formula. Duration dot days, end date minus start date, and we are adding that one in order to include that end date as well. So we get the same result and now this is dynamic. If we change end date to, let's say, 3rd of February, right? If we change this to 3 and if we see the result in method 1, we are getting the correct result, right? Desired result, that is starting from 26 January until 3rd of February. Let's say we change the starting date to 30th January. And if we see the result, we are getting the correct result here, desired result here. If we change the end date to, let's say, 14th February, we get the correct result here, right? This is dynamic now using duration.days function. So we have seen the method 1, that how we can combine list.date function and duration.days in order to generate list of all the dates between start date and end date, right? And I will keep this part here because we are going to need this in one of the methods when we will discuss method 2 and 3, right? So this is method 1 and now let's proceed to method 2. In this method again we discussed list.dates function primarily. Let's see method 2. And in this method, we will see that how we can generate a dynamic list of numbers and how we can make the conversions from date to number and number to date. Right. So let's see that what do we have in this method. Now in Power Query, we have one shortcut to generate list of numbers for a given start number and a ending number. So if we see that shortcut, what we will have to do, let's say we have to create a list of numbers starting from 11 to 20. So we will write here equals to, open the curly brackets indicate list in Power Query, and we will have to write here the starting number, that is 11 here. Now starting from 11, we have to go until 20. So for that we will have to include two dots here. So starting from 11, then two dots, we have to continue until 20, right? And if we enter, then we get this result, right? We get this list of numbers starting from 11 until 20. If we change this to, let's say, 15, so starting from 15 until 20, this is dynamic. If we change this 20 to, let's say, 30, again this list is dynamic here. We have generated numbers starting from 15 until 30. And this is the shortcut we can use for our purpose as well, right? So again, here as well, we are generating dates. So we can use a similar thing here as well. So let's see that does it work for dates as well or not. So if we change, let's say, this 15 to start date, that starting from start date here. So start date, we have to go until end date. So let's give here input as end date here. We get this error here that we cannot apply this double dot operator to type date and date, right? So this is a date, this is a date again. So we cannot do this here for dates. But we know that in Power Query and in Excel, dates are stored as numbers. So we can leverage that knowledge and we can convert dates to numbers, and then we can generate this list, right? So let's first of all see that how we can convert dates to numbers, and then we will see that how we can generate such list here, right? So let's create another step here. And here what we will do, we will convert, let's say, starting date to a number. So for converting that, what we will do, we will use number.from function. So number.from function, and it creates a number from a given value. We will select this function, open the bracket, and as our input, we will give start date, right? So now what has Power Query done? It has converted this date to a number here. Similarly, we can do for end date as well. So if we see the result for end date, this is the result that we get, right? And now simply what we have to do, we have to generate that list starting from start date until end date. The only thing here is that we have converted those dates to type numbers. Okay, so how we can do that? So for that, again, what we will do, we will copy this part here. We will open the curly brackets, and within that we will give number.from, and we will convert start date to type number, and then we will include those double dots operator, and we will go until end date. So number dot from end date, right? We have converted those to numbers, and then we are creating this list of numbers. We will close the curly bracket here, and then if we see the result, what do we get? We get this list starting from this date here. Again, behind this there is a date, and we are going until this number here. Again, behind this there is a date as well. So we have this list here, and again in this we have 16 dates here. In method 1 as well, if we see the result, we have 16 dates here. So we don't need this. We will copy this, and we will go to method 2, and we will replace this part here. Right? We can remove this step here. If we see the method 2, we have this list here. Right? Now these are numbers. We have to again convert them back to dates. Right? We cannot tell or judge that what do we have as dates here just by seeing these numbers. So we can convert these to dates as well, so that we visually see that what is the date behind these numbers as well. How we can do that in Power Query? Again, just like we have number.from function, we have another function that is date.from. And what does date.from do? It will convert a number to type date, right? So we can use that function here, and we cannot apply that function directly on this list. In order to apply that date.from function on each of the items of this list, we will have to use list.transform function. So we will use that list.transform function here, list transform. So we will select this here. Let's open the bracket, and for each of the items in this list, so for that again, for each of the items in this list, we will use that each keyword. What do we have to do? We have to use date.from function here. So date.from, open the bracket, and we will use that underscore operator here in order to select the respective dates here. So let's use that. Let's close the bracket. Let's press enter, and we get this as our result here. That list of all the dates starting from, let's say, 30th January 2024 until 14th February 2024. And this is the same result we got in method 1 as well. Let's change our start date to, let's say, 26th of January, and end date again, let's say, to 8th of February. So if we see the result in method 2, we get this result, and this is dynamic, right? What we have done basically, that we have converted dates to numbers and then again back to dates here. And we can shorten this formula as well by removing this each keyword. Why we can remove this each keyword here? Because we, inside this date.from function, we only have the single input here, right? The single input here. So we can remove this each keyword here, and we can just keep this date.from function. We can remove these brackets and that underscore operator here, and only this part will do the job here for us. Again, this will only work in case this date.from function only has that single input here. If it has more than one inputs, then this might not work. So we have seen this method too, and in this we have used list.transform function, number.from function, and date.from function. And we have also seen a use case for this kind of shortcut for generating numbers. Again, this can be used for generating alphabets as well, list of alphabets as well. We will discuss that in some another video. So this is method 2. Now let's proceed to the last method, that is method 3. So in method 3, again, we are going to use a similar format here, but with a twist. So let's see that what do we have in method 3. And this is a combination of method 1 and method 2 basically. Right. So what is the logic that we are going to use here? So let's say if we study this list here, what is the difference between each of these dates here? The difference is 1 day here, right? And if we start with the starting date, let's say 26th of January 2024, if we add 0 days to this date here, what is the result that we get? We get the same date back. If we add 1 day to this date, what is the result that we get? We get 27th January 2024. If we add 2 days to this date, what is the result that we get? We get 28th of January. If we add 3 days, we get 29th of January. So the idea is that we will create a list of numbers, and each of the numbers we will add to the starting date, and we will generate this list of dates here. So the idea is basically that, first of all, let's see that how can we add number of days to a given date. Now for that, what we can do, we can use date dot add days function. So we will use equals to date dot add days function, and we have all different functions as well, but for now we will use this function date dot add days function. And what it will do, basically it will take a date as input and number of days. So we will give number of days as input here, that how many days do we want to increment to this particular date. So let's use this function here. So let's say as our date we will give start date as input, and let's say we wish to increment 3 days to this date. So we get 29 as a result, and if we see the result as well here, at this position we have 29th here, right? So we will start our list with 0, starting from 0. So we will increment 0 days to 26th January, then 1 day to 26th January, then 2 days to 26th January, then 3 days to 26th January, and then here we will increment 13 days to 26th January in order to arrive at this result here. So first of all, we will create that list here, that starting from 0 until where do we wish to go. So for that, what we can do, we can create a list starting from 0 until 13, and we have the duration here. right? We have already calculated the difference between the two dates here using duration.days function. So what we will do, we will open the curly brackets in order to create that list. So let's say we are starting from 0 and we are going until, let's say, 10. So we will write here 0 double dots and then 10 here. So we have got this list of 11 numbers starting from 0 until 10. We have to make this part dynamic, that is 10 dynamic, and for that we can use duration.days function here. Duration.days end date minus start date in order to calculate the difference in number of days, right? And we get this list here again, starting from 1, starting from 0 until 13 here, and we have 14 values in this list, right? And we also have 14 dates in this list as well. So in method 3, what we have done, basically we have generated this list here. Now what we will do, to the start date we will increment each of these days here. So to start date we will increment 0 days, 1 days, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and so on. And for incrementing each of these days, what we can do, we can use list.transform function. So for now, let's copy this formula here. Let's go to method 3. Let's paste that here and we will get this result. We can remove this step and we can remove this step as well. So we have method 3 here, and what we will do, we will use list.transform function. List.transform function, right? And we have to transform each of the values in this list. For each of the values, what do we have to do? We have to use we have to use date.addDays function. So date.addDays here, and to which date we have to add each of these days? We have to add these days to start date, right? Start date, comma, how many days? Again, each of these dates that we have in this list. So we will write here. So we will give underscore operator here as our input. We will close that bracket here. Let's press enter and let's see the output here. So we have the exact same output here. If we change the date, end date to, let's say, 18th of February, right? 18th of February. And if we see the output in method 1, we have in total 24 dates, again starting from 26 January until 18th of February. If we see the result in method 2, we have the same result here. In method 3 as well, we have the same result here, right? Method 1 was using list.dates, and we saw that how we can use duration.days in order to calculate difference in days. Then we saw method 2, in which was entirely different from method 1, in which first of all we created that list of dates and we then transformed it back to dates here. Then method 3 was a fusion of method 1 and method 2, in which we used that list format here and we use duration.days function in order to find the difference in days here, and then we applied date.addDays function here. So we saw these three methods in order to arrive at the same task. So via these three different methods, we have learned about so many different formulas which we can use at different places. So that was the main objective of this video as well. The objective was not just to look at this problem and solve this problem, but to learn these different functions and how we can use them in order to solve our problems in different ways. So that's it for this video, and I hope you like this video. Do drop your feedback and any suggestions that you have. So that's it for this video, and hope to see you in more such videos in future. Thank you.